Hey, what's up? It's Mike Squires. It's early, and this is the Couchers Podcast, number 108, with my guest, Brian Nutter. Brian Nutter is former touring and studio guitar player for a who's who of Nashville folks and beyond. But most notably, played with Keith Urban for a long time, ripping out the rock and roll country guitar licks for folks. And it's funny. He's got a funny perspective on all this stuff. I met him back when he was doing that gig, and he sat in with the karaoke band that you guys have heard me talk about a bit here. And so it's funny. He's like, he's probably the only person that'll ever be on the show that actually saw that thing in action. Anyway, he sat in. He was great. It was like, yeah, it's pretty great. It's pretty nerve-wracking for a guy like me to have 500 songs, but he just stepped up and he was like, yeah, whatever, what key's it in? No problemo. Let's go. I never heard it. No problem. It's crazy. But he's great. Great guitar player, great singer, multi-instrumentalist. But so now he is teaching at the Musicians Institute Guitar Craft Academy in Nashville. That's really cool. And he designs and builds Nutter guitars, which are these very stylish Jetsons, mid-century modern looking guitars that are very, very cool. Go check those out at nutterguitars.com. And go check out the program if you're interested in building guitars or learn how to build guitars. Check out the Guitar Craft Academy. It's pretty cool. I guess it's 9 months, he said. That's a long time, man. But, you could hang out somewhere a lot worse than Nashville for 9 months. I'll tell you that. That's a science fact. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. We get into Brian's 2020, which has probably been worse than yours. He got a tear in his esophagus in early February, and essentially it's just been a series of very bad luck scenarios since then. He's on the mend now. He's all good. But he had some near-death experiences. He was in the hospital, in and out of the hospital, multiple surgeries. It's been a rough year for him. So he details, he chronicles his year for us, and it's pretty brutal and unexpected. Be careful out there. Jesus. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. I loved catching up with him. Funny fella. And I hope we get to hang out again soon. If you like the Couchers Podcast, share episodes. It's easy. Just click the little recirculate button, share it everywhere. Share it anywhere, here, there, and everywhere. If you like it a lot, leave a review. Leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. That stuff really helps a lot. If you really, really, really like Couch Riffs, go buy a t-shirt at couchriffs.com. There's a link over there to the Etsy store. If you love Couch Riffs, you could become a pledge supporter for as little as 99 cents a month. There's a link right in the description of this podcast, wherever you're listening. Or go to anchor.fm and search for Couch Riffs. Boom, there it is. For as little as 99 cents a month, you can help keep this podcast growing. We've got, a video series as well, which I hope that you're familiar with. There's a bunch of videos coming up soon. We just sorted out details for Brian to be in one. And that's it costs money. Mostly it costs a lot of money right out of my pocket, but I love to do it. And if you love to do it, and you want to help, that would be amazing. So here's some folks who have been helping for a while. I want to thank you now. So thank you, Ryan Waters. Thank you, Hayden Smith. Thank you, Ryan Hooper. Thank you, Jamie McParland. Thank you, Matt Gabbs. Thank you, Justin Jones. That I met Justin at the Nutter Guitars booth at NAMM last year. Thank you, Doug Starkovic. Thank you, DJ Colantuono. Thank you, Adam Pranica. Thank you, Dan Hurst. Thank you, James Pope. Thank you, S.J. Somerset Sullivan. Who are you? Follow me at the Couch Riffs Pledge Supporter Instagram. Thank you, Mike Lacerda. Thank you, Soto Rebellos. Thank you, Dan Leary. Thank you, Kathy Giordano. Thank you, Rebecca Pellman. Thank you, Danny Bland. Thank you, Ryan Crace. Thank you, Paul Hutzler. Thank you, Justice Gash. Thank you, Steve Hall. Thank you, Teresa Morgan. Thank you, Perry Morgan. Thank you, Rolla Amplifiers. Rolla, thank you, guys. Thank you for hooking me up with Bob. We got a video coming. And then also thank you, of course, to our friends River City Guitars in Spokane, Washington, rivercityguitars.com. You will find just a fraction of their awesome inventory. What you should ought to do is get in touch with them. You know, follow them on social media. They post all their new acquisitions there. So, you know, the funny thing is before they even get onto the website, people see it coming in on the social and they're calling in and buying stuff up. So if you have things for sale, you know, you have some dusty old guitar that you think is of value, or you have something that you know is of value and you don't want to move it yourself on Craigslist, get a hold of Bobby. 509-818-7693. I've sold stuff through him. He's a great, fair fella. I love him. And I met him through doing business. And that's a fine way to figure out if you're going to like someone or not. You can also email them at sales.rivercityguitars@gmail.com. All right. So every week I pick something off the website, right? I pick a little something. You know, everyone knows that I have a soft spot for Hamers. Now this week, my pick of the week is a 1983 Hamer Blitz. That is the model which looks a lot like an Explorer. There's 6 of these which were ever made. This is one of those 6. It is a flame maple top, bound, and I believe it's one piece. It looks like one piece to me. It is hot, man. It is hot, hot, hot. You got to get a look at this thing. Go over to rivercityguitars.com. Put your eyeballs on this thing. Buy it before I put myself into debt by buying it. It can be had for $29.99 or make them an offer. There's no harm in negotiating. Get on over there, rivercityguitars.com. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I had a great time. And don't forget the golden rule. Treat others the way you want them to treat you. And don't be a dick. It's fucking way harder to be a dick than to not be a dick.
And ta-da.
Yeah.
Yes! Technology.
I love technology. How you doing, man?
Dude, better every day.
What's that behind you?
My shop.
Are you outside?
Yeah. That's my highly sophisticated locking system, my Craftsman flathead screwdriver.
No, that's I mean, there's not a raccoon in the world that could figure that out.
Bro, raccoons out here usually end up getting perforated. I live in the sticks, man. So
I do too.
I've got 22 acre horse farm out here with half the time I don't even lock the shop up. Usually I forget to shut the door and turn the light off.
Right. How long have you lived out there?
6 years.
And where were you before that?
Downtown.
Right. How long have you been in Nashville area?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, long time.
20 years ago, it was a completely different place.
Bro, 3 years ago, it was a different place.
Right.
It looks like a Spider-Man movie downtown right now. It's like there's so many cranes up, and they're building. The skyline changes every time I go down there.
Oh, I thought you were going to say there was a bunch of mastermind criminals.
It's all because of the our former mayor, a couple of mayors ago, pitched that TV show Nashville to ABC, and they used it as basically a gigantic weekly tourist, hey, come to Nashville kind of thing, because they had these beautiful aerial shots of Nashville, and hell, the next thing we knew, everyone from LA moved here.
Right.
And everything that was cool about Nashville is no longer. They knocked down like legendary buildings. They knocked down the old offices for RCA, where Chet's office was. There was a studio, but hell, Butch Walker had a studio there. And I just happened to be downtown the day they did it. It was nothing but just a big pile of bricks. And I'd been in that building and written so many songs in there. And so I stopped my van like right in the middle of the street, got out. There's dudes in hard hats and everything. And I just got out and walked up on the big pile of bricks and looked around, found the one I wanted, picked it up, waved to him, turned around, went back to the van.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. My buddy, do you know Trey Bruce?
I don't.
Do you know him? He's a songwriter fella down there and works with a few folks and studio guy.
My wife would probably know more of the songwriter guys than I did.
Yeah.
She had a publishing deal here for like 10 years.
Maybe he's still doing it, but he had like a foundation to save studios.
Really?
Yeah. And I think there's like I don't know that much about the history of Nashville other than like the Grand Ole Opry.
Right.
The Ryman.
Yeah.
But, there's some place down there that he sort of helped preserve.
Probably the RCA Studios. Ben Folds still owns that, and they were going to tear it down.
Who does?
Ben Folds.
Really?
Really.
Huh. He lives in the town next to mine.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's owned the RCA studio for a long, long time.
That's amazing. He's into some cool shit.
Ben is like mega cool. Nobody ever I think people just sort of like write him off, but he's a songwriting genius and just a super cool guy.
Yeah, he for sure. I ran into him on the street here once. We didn't, and then ended up at a party.
Right.
Same party last summer, but I haven't really talked to him. I want to get him to do a video.
Oh yeah, he would.
I think so.
Yeah, he's a good enough guy. He'd do that.
Got to get him to do something really unexpected though. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know he owned that studio. That's a legendary place.
Oh man, like the list of records cut there is longer than everyone's arm.
I mean, the worst record they ever made there is probably better than the best record made in most studios.
For real. It's definitely better than everything that Nashville's putting out now.
You can say that about a lot of I guess 20 years ago.
All genres, I believe.
What's that?
You can say that straight across all genres, I think.
Right.
Because all Nashville does is just sort of follow pop music about 10 to 15 years behind. So now here in Nashville, there's if you listen to the radio, there's very few like real drums that you'll hear. It's usually a lot of programmed drums, and it sounds like pop music or rap records from 10, 15 years ago.
Right. Is that because as people get older and they were maybe listening to pop music or hip hop music 15 years ago, now they're 35 or 40 and they're like, well, I'm sophisticated now and mature. Now I listen to country music.
Yeah, I think so, because like 20 years ago when I moved here, the tide was changing from the Star Stranglers and boots and hats and like true Telecaster guys, everyone trying to cop Brent Mason's thing, to everyone wanted old hair metal guitar players like yours truly.
Right.
They wanted rock guys. They wanted to see Marshall amps, and they wanted to see Les Pauls and that kind of thing. They didn't want it to be rock. They just wanted it to have the guys that had those sensibilities. So
right.
It was a sort of a one thing. If you would go in to do a session, you would hear constantly like, we want kind of a Sheryl Crow vibe, or we want kind of a Tom Petty vibe. That became like a blanket statement. So,
I mean, you could certainly do worse than those vibes. I mean, everyone that played on those records is a fucking monster, right?
Real. I mean, Audley Freed and his wife, and Robert, actually, the bass player, and hell, Fred Eltringham, the majority of that band, and Cheryl herself lives here. I think Peter Stroud's the only one that doesn't live in Nashville. He lives in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
But Audley's been in that band now forever.
Right. Man, he had that Black Crowes gig for a minute. That's a pretty hot gig to have, but what a headache, I think.
Yeah, I would think so. Between like two brothers, who got famous when they were 19. I mean, that's got to mess with anybody. That would twist anyone's reality into, nowheresville. Then they just end up living on their own planet, and you have to live there while you're working with them.
Right. Struggle for air on their planet.
For real. And then, but I mean, I was a fan of Audley's all the way back to the first Cry of Love record.
Right. It was more, definitely more of a Hendrix thing, Strats and.
For real, like I always called Cry of Love the greatest day Bad Company never had. I've bugged Audley for years now. I was like, man, I want to sing that first Cry of Love record, top to bottom. Track one all the way through. I don't even want to face anybody. Hell, I'll turn around and face the drummer. We don't even have to do it in front of people. We'll get in somebody's garage. I just want to do it one time. Every time Audley goes, oh, hell, man. I don't even know if I remember that stuff anymore.
Was that band based in L.A.?
No, they were North Carolina.
They were.
Produced by the same cat that did Corrosion of Conformity and all those other North Carolina bands.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Where are you from?
Originally West Virginia.
West Virginia. Damn.
Yeah.
Where at?
Everywhere in West Virginia is kind of middle of nowhere, but I was right on the Ohio River. You could see Ohio from our back window.
I don't remember what the town was. What is the college town there in West Virginia?
The big one, Morgantown, West Virginia University.
That's right. I played there once.
Oh, yeah. I went to school there.
Uh-huh.
Went to school there for about 2.5 years before I realized I was going to make more money just playing guitar and singing than I was going to be a music school teacher.
Is that what you wanted to do?
That's what my degree was going to be in. But my plan all along was to get the degree and then go be the guitar player singer, and then just realized this is stupid. I'm just going to go do this, and that's what I did.
Right.
Left college and moved to LA in 95.
You went to LA and you were there for 5 or 6 years?
There for a few years, and then came back to West Virginia for a little while. The band that I was in, all West Virginia guys, the guys that I grew up with, and we were being courted by a couple of labels. So we all sort of like
back when that still happened.
Yeah, for real. And we centrally hubbed back in West Virginia, and then when that fell through, finally, we were, another one of those bands that was just like sort of like too late. We were somewhere between like Matchbox 20 and the Eagles, basically like a band that could sing. Whenever we would cover stuff, we could cover Boston or Kansas and that kind of thing, and everyone could sing in that sort of like boy choir range.
Yeah.
And then after that folded, I moved to Nashville.
Did you so if you had a sound that sort of recalled the Eagles a little bit, you probably certainly listened to the Eagles, but maybe growing up in West Virginia, did you have like bluegrass and country roots at all?
Dad was in a band. Dad played pedal steel in a band that had a minor deal in Nashville in the early 80s, sort of outlaw country stuff. So growing up as a kid, I heard a lot of like, Haggard and Buck Owens and all that 70s outlaw country stuff. So I still like dearly love that. But once we get to like the 80s, that was whenever I was about, we're talking like 82, 83, 84. About the time that you start listening to your own music, I heard Blizzard of Oz for the first time. And I'd never heard rock and roll like that. The closest thing I'd ever gotten to rock and roll would have been like Skinner or Hatchet or the Eagles, obviously. And I was fascinated with the Eagles live record, and particularly one side, the guitar player. I didn't know who he was. I just loved the way he sounded. And then later, as I got older, realized that was Joe Walsh. And then discovered that Joe Walsh was easily one of my favorite guitar players ever.
Oh,
and of course, Don Felder was as well. But Joe was my guy. And then I discovered, by the time I got into Ozzy, Randy was already gone. And Jake was the guitar player. So weirdly enough, my favorite guitar player from Ozzy's bands is Jake.
You know what? That's a pretty unpopular opinion, but I teeter a lot, but I'm kind of with you.
And the record that gets bashed the most is probably one of my favorite ones, is The Ultimate Sin.
Really?
Yeah.
I just learned that Shot in the Dark was a cover. Did you fucking know that?
No.
Oh, yeah.
From who?
One of the members of the band at that time, I don't recall what his name was.
That'd be Phil Susan.
That's who it was. It was him. He was in a band before. He was in Ozzy's band, and they wrote that song.
Whoa!
No, I know. And they're different lyrics, but it is absolutely and undeniably the same song.
Took it from.
Yeah.
Ain't that something?
And apparently they didn't get credited.
Well, no. Just like, Jake didn't get any of the credit for Bark at the Moon and all of that kind of stuff. But
right. No, I think that Jake Ely is an incredible guitar player.
Oh, God.
And, I know he's had a couple of miles of bad road in the last 30 years, but I was a Badlands fan. I loved that record when he put it out. And, I did High Wire in my high school band.
Yeah, Ray Gillen's one of the greatest rock and roll singers nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
Whoa.
Never met him. I met Warren DeMartini, and when I found out that those guys were roommates when they were both writing those songs, my mind...
Rap.
Yeah, my brain just caved in.
Oh, that whole 80s metal scene is so incestuous. The only reason they all got famous in their own bands is because they finally stopped playing musical chairs and stuck to one for a minute.
Right. If I could only be so lucky.
Yeah, Juan Crucier was in Dokken.
Right.
When they got signed.
When they got signed?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when they did Breaking the Chains. Yeah, that's Juan on that record. That's not Jeff. Jeff just showed up for the Breaking the Chains video.
Huh. That guy's got a good gig now.
Oh, and man, you won't find a sweeter cat on the planet.
I want to talk to him. I mean, I saw Dokken play a half a dozen times back then because they were out. They toured a lot.
Oh, God, yeah. They were always on the road.
Yeah. And, I was a big fan. I was a big George Lynch fan.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big fan of anything that was flashy, really, as a young, impressionable teenage boy.
It was fun. The lyrics were dumb and frivolous, and the whole thing was over the top, and it was just fun. Then whenever the whole Seattle scene hit, and then everybody was all dark and nobody wanted to play anymore. And then there was songs about hating your dad, and it was well, I'm a pretty happy kid. I like my dad.
Right. Well, your dad sounds fucking cool.
Yeah, I didn't relate.
Right.
I was right on the cusp. I mean, I was 19 when Nevermind came out. So I'd already had all my impressionable stuff hit me. So I thought Nirvana was we're just a bunch of clowns.
Right.
I still every year listen to Nevermind, trying to like it, and I can't. I listen to the whole, top to bottom, and
I mean, I love it, but
for me, that ever came out of Nirvana was the Foo Fighters.
Right. Well, there's certainly a lot happier stuff, but you know.
Yeah, and that's why, because Grohl he seemed more like me, like just happy and fun, and just wanted to go have a good time. And I always
dude is cool.
Yeah, he really is. So that's why I gravitated to those guys.
Right. And you could never imagine Nirvana covering a Journey song, but you could definitely imagine the Foo Fighters doing it.
Dude. I mean, I've seen video of Grohl with Rick Astley. Right. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be...
That's fun. Hell, I'd do that. I'd do that right now.
Right, yeah, me too. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. Hey, Rick, why don't you...
Yeah, really?
Hey, that's your cue.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I just have him in a closet everywhere. I just have him tied up in a closet so that I can pull him out whenever I want. Fuck. So all your earliest guitar heroes were 80s metal guys. That's what you're saying?
Other than Don Felder and Joe Walsh. And later I found out like Don Rich from the Buckaroos and those kind of guys. Yeah, it was George was my number one. Initially it was Jake, but then it was George. And then of course like Paul Gilbert and Malmsteen, and those were the guys. Lynch, Paul Gilbert are the two that really like shaped my early on guitar playing.
Paul Gilbert is a monster.
He is a freak of nature.
Have you met him?
No.
Also a really nice guy.
I understand he's one of the sweetest human beings alive.
Yeah. Doing a video with him right now.
Really?
It should be out, I don't know, awesome. Like the week after this podcast.
He's in the area right now, isn't he?
What's that?
In Portland, I guess.
Yeah, he lives in Portland, Oregon. Really good. Really, really good. And a great slide player. And not the kind of slide player that like, you know, he's not like...
He's not Derek Trucks or like...
Right.
Any of those kind of cats. But no, he's like cool. I mean, that's sort of like my slide playing sounds more like Walsh. I am never going to be Sonny Landreth. I'm never going to be Ry Cooder.
Those guys are technicians.
Yeah, for real. No, those or Jack Pearson. Jesus criminy. Dude. Jack Pearson opened for me once in Nashville.
How do you feel about it?
I wanted to leave. He brought in a blue $159 Squier Stratocaster and I want to say it was a Sound Tank tube screamer, a little TS5.
Uh-huh.
Had his slide in his pocket and plugged into whatever amp that was there, and it sounded like sunshine coming out of the amplifier. Everything he did was the right thing to do at the right time. Whenever he would light it on fire, or whenever he would just like, play the longest note ever, it was the right thing to do at the right time, every time. He never missed, and he was just the sweetest guy, which made it even worse. I mean, I wanted to hate him. I wanted him to be just a gigantic, like, headstrong douche, but he wasn't. He was wonderful.
Right.
Another guy that nobody really, really knows about here in town.
Why not?
I don't know. I mean, he does gigs with the Allmans and that kind of stuff. So that crowd, the folks that are like fans of Derek or Warren Haynes and the Allmans and stuff, the Dead and that kind of stuff. They all know who Jack is, but other than that, most people, whenever they think about Nashville, they think of, obviously, the first thing they usually think of is Brent Mason. And
for good reason.
Yeah, for real. Brent and got to do what Eddie Van Halen got to do. He got to make his thing the thing. So you had to play like that.
Right.
And now it's probably like Tom Bukovac, Derek Wells, Danny Rader, a few other guys.
Are you still doing studio work?
I haven't. Obviously, this year I haven't done anything. But on
But
occasion,
we could do a whole podcast on this. Yeah. When people talk about how what a shitty 2020 they're having, I just think to myself,
I got a head start. I got about a 3-week head start on it.
On
a shitty year.
Yeah.
Everyone else started in like March. Mine started the 1st of February.
Right after NAMM.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back and talk about how things started to turn, how Nashville started to change your life. But since we're on it, let's stay on it for a minute and maybe give us the abbreviated version of what kind of a fucked year you've had.
So February 7th, I'm also I'm the lead instructor at Musicians Institute Guitarcraft Academy here in Nashville.
Okay.
So electric guitar design, repair, and construction, as well as assist in the acoustic side as well when I can. So on February 7th at 10 o'clock, whenever class was letting out, one of my students had a big bag of sunflower seeds, and he goes, "Hey, you want some?" So I got a handful about the size of maybe a golf ball, and just started munching on them. And I'd always just eaten them with the shells on.
Sure.
Well, what I didn't know is I had a hiatal hernia, which is like a sort of a stricture at where your esophagus meets your stomach. And they got sort of stuck, and I could feel it. So I took a big swig of water, and when I did that, the shells were sharp, and they shredded my esophagus, flooding my chest cavity with shrapnel and water. And I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was the creepiest pain I had ever experienced in my whole life. So I kind of got myself together. Oddly enough, my van needed headlights, and I was going to change them out after class that night. So I still changed the headlights in my van, and then drove home. And I was on my way home, and
So what kind of feeling were you having while you're after this experience?
It felt like I'd swallowed a soldering iron. And then it sort of subsided, and I was like, okay, I'm going to rally. I thought I'd scratched the inside of my esophagus. I didn't know what had happened at this point. Kept drinking water, and then as I'm driving home, I didn't know that I was even filling up my chest cavity above my diaphragm and around my lungs and my heart and all that kind of stuff with water and all this other stuff. My breathing started to become short. I almost made it home. I have about an hour commute. And by about 4 miles from the little town that I live close to, I couldn't breathe anymore. Just and I pulled over and called 911, and they finally came and got me. That ER treated me like a drug addict for the next 2 hours. And I kept telling him in labored breaths, if you'll allow me to breathe, I'll tell you everything that happened. Well, it was 2 hours and 7 doses of pain medication in an IV. And we're talking Dilaudid, morphine, fentanyl. We found out that I have a huge tolerance to that stuff. So this is stuff that could have put me down, right? Well, I passed out for about 2 minutes and then woke back up and then could breathe. They took what's called an esophagram, where you swallow this stuff and then they can see if you're leaking. Well, of course I was, in a big way. Then they stuffed me into an ambulance and take me back to Nashville for emergency surgery. Open me up, go through my rib cage, collapse my left lung, repair the hole in my esophagus, put in a stent.
Wait a minute. Let's talk about human anatomy for a moment. So your esophagus begins at the bottom of your throat and travels down to the intersection of your 2 lungs, correct?
Travels past your lungs. It's the direct path to your stomach.
Okay.
So, and I found out that it's a very thin and very fragile little membrane, really. So they repair that, put me back together, send me home after about a week. Then I got sick again, developed double pneumonia. Here's where we're going to speed up the story. Over the next 3 months, I would be back in the hospital for a week, home for a couple of days, back in with double pneumonia again. I ended up with double pneumonia 2 or 3 times. I went into septic shock a couple of times where there was infection in my bloodstream that could have killed me. I almost died 3 to 4 times. Eventually ended up changing hospitals. They went back in, did the surgery again, and I didn't know if I was going to live through it. That surgeon scraped out and sucked out so much infection out of me. He said it was more than he'd ever done in his entire career. 5 or 6 stents in my esophagus later, I went from 187 pounds to 137 pounds. I looked like a Holocaust survivor.
Right.
I could have fronted Velvet Revolver, as skinny as I was. And after they finally got nutrition in me and got all the infection out, then the hole healed up. But we're talking that wasn't until the hole initially happened February 7th. The hole wasn't pronounced like actually healed until July something, I think.
That's 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, for real. It's only been in the last week to a week and a half where I felt normal, because then, my digestive system is still completely wrecked. I was walking around with drain tubes, a feeding tube. I had an IV pick in my arm. I walked around my house with all this stuff hanging out of me and with a pole with, fluid constantly going into me, up and until just a few weeks ago. And now in the last week and a half, I finally feel like me again. Right.
And so if your body is not getting nutrition, it can't heal properly. Because
No.
It's just trying to stay alive. It's like, what the fuck is going on here, fella?
There were several times when my wife dropped me off, because again, I went in February 7th, and by the 1st of March, the whole COVID thing hits. Well, I joke with my wife that I felt like Rick Grimes, because during that time I was out of it the majority of the time. Right. You're on painkillers or morphine or whatever, or just overall infection and sickness, and I was asleep. And I told her I felt like I woke up and somewhere in March, and I felt like Rick Grimes in the first episode of The Walking Dead. Right. The whole world had gone to shit. All I wanted was my horse, and just wanted to figure out how to get out of here. But when she dropped me off at the second hospital, she had to leave me at the ER, and I was freezing, and it's like 80 degrees outside, and I could barely move. So she left me in a wheelchair with my bag on my lap and a blanket over me outside the ER. And there I was, like withering away to nothing. That second surgery, I told the surgeon, I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to live through this. I don't know if I'm strong enough. And he was like, well, this is a risk that we're going to have to take.
Right.
And when I woke up, I was by myself in recovery. And the very first thing I did, I opened my eyes and I looked around and I went, I made it. And I was instantly feeling better because all that garbage was out of me.
Right.
And from there on in, it was just climbing the ladder back out of the hole.
Do you feel changed?
I definitely have PTSD now because they put me on what's called NPO, where that means that you can't eat or drink anything. I would be PTSD where I couldn't eat or drink anything without a feeding tube, without nutrition going into me. All I had was going into me was like an IV fluid. That happened at like 4 to 6 day stretches. All told, it was over a month that I was NPO. So I'm a little weird about missing a meal now.
Right.
Yeah, if it's like, hey, you can't eat for a second, it's like, no, you can fuck right off because I'm going to eat something.
Right.
So, but other than that, I'm,
a lot of soft foods, I imagine.
Well, yeah, but now I'm back to like full diet. But yeah, it's, I don't know if it's changed to me because I'm 47 now. When I was 39, I had a stroke.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I was on the road with Keith then, and lost the ability. My blockage was on this side of my head, which doesn't. It's the opposite. If it's over here, that's when your face slides and your arm draws out. It affects you physically. The other side of your head, it affects you verbally, hearing, and comprehension. So I couldn't read. I could talk, but if I hadn't said a word in a while, I wouldn't be able to pronounce it. I couldn't spell anything. I couldn't.
Could you do man, woman, television?
I could speak, but it was weird. I couldn't remember the lyrics to anything, like "Happy Birthday, row row your boat," none of that stuff. And here I am, like a touring professional cat, right? So
could you play?
Yeah, I could play, but I couldn't play pickup notes. Everything had to start on the downbeat.
Really?
Yeah. If it
what
started
a
on the
fucking weird effect to have on someone.
My right ear sounded like, and I can explain this to musicians, it sounded like it was heavily compressed, a little bit distorted, down about 3 to 4 dB, and on a sliding delay scale of like no milliseconds to up to maybe a second. I'd hear phantom things. I would hear, and probably because of Dad, I would hear pedal steel guitar in another room.
Wow.
If I was singing, I would hear like Boston or Queen style stacked vocal harmony with whatever I was doing in that ear. My in-ear monitors had to be rebuilt to accommodate for my dB loss and frequency response.
It sounded like you need to update the firmware on the Eventide that you got upstairs there in your head.
Yeah, it eventually sort of cured itself. And then over the course of maybe like 2, maybe 3 years or so, it all came back.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, did you go down the rabbit hole of like exploring what your brain does to repair itself under those circumstances?
Yeah, your brain finds new pathways. Once one way is shut down or roadblocked or blown up, it finds new roads around. And I could feel it happen every now and again, like the big ones. I'd get dizzy for a second, and then all of a sudden, things would come back.
All of a sudden, you were like, "Hey, I can."
I regret this, or yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I don't stutter so bad, or.
What a fucking crazy 10 years you've had.
Well, the trippy thing is when I had the stroke, I was touring heavily, and I was the guy that sang all the high stuff. And we jumped, Ian Keith's band, we jumped around like Van Halen for 2.5 hours. So in order to do that, I ran, 5 miles at least a day. And then I could do that in under 40 minutes. And then sometimes during the opening band, I'd go run for another 2-3 miles just as a warm up. And then I know we're one of the barn cats is out here hanging out. So I could run like that. My resting heart rate was like 50. I could do 100 push-ups. I could do 20 pull-ups. I was in the greatest shape of my life. At 39, I was in way better shape than I was when I was 18.
Right.
And yeah, well, pow.
Wow. How does that, you just like luck of the draw could happen to any of us.
For real. I remember telling the doctor, when will I be able to talk right again? And that took probably 5 minutes. And she said, well, we don't know if you will. And I said, well, keep me alive for the next few days and I'll figure it out.
Right.
So even whenever this thing with my esophagus happened, whenever it got dark and like really, really dark, like if, this is horrible and you could die. It was like, no, I'm not going to die. Right. I'm too much of an asshole. I'm not dying.
I don't think something like that would kill me either because I am fucking great at suffering.
Oh yeah. You can't kill me. No, you really you'd have to do it immediately. Like 2 in the head, 2 in the chest.
There'd probably be something really, really dumb. Really dumb that kills me. It's not going to be old age.
If a sunflower seed,
right,
can wreck your world.
No, it's really incredible. It's really incredible. Although, now that you're on the other side of it, we can make some jokes about it. Can you imagine? It would be so much better than I don't want to die of cancer. No.
Oh, I know that's what I was saying. I was like, I don't want to be the guy that they wrote, medical journals about a fucking sunflower.
But let's to be fair, if I died because I ate a sunflower seed and it ripped me open and I whatever. That's what took me out. It would be a great story, at least. It's so much better that you hear about Squires ate a sunflower seed, it ripped him up, and he rotted from the inside out.
Exactly.
He, tough bastard, great at suffering. He went to work for the next 2 weeks and then just fell over dead one day. And they autopsied him, and yeah, sunflower seed took him out. It was still in there.
Yeah. That's kind of what it,
Or I'd like, you know.
Flower sprouted out of his chest whenever he hit the
ground. Like an alien.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really happy and relieved and glad to see you on the other side and see you happy and smiling and laughing and eating.
Yeah, man. Yeah, eating is a good thing. For real.
Those 5 months of horse shit.
Oh, it was something else. It really, I mean, obviously I'm the one going through it, but it clearly affected everyone. You know, my kids are only 4 and 2. So
they don't know what's going on.
My 4-year-old just knows Dad's sick and she can't jump on me as much. And, of course it affects my wife like crazy. My mom, her mom both came in and lived with us forever and took care of them while we shuttled back and forth to the hospital. Dad came down here for a little while. It was, and piles of other friends have helped us in tremendous ways. One of the guys from the band I was talking about, from West Virginia, took one of my guitars and auctioned it off. That was huge. Just recently, Texas Toast Guitars during the Great Guitar Build-Off, has built a guitar for charity and decided to make me the charity.
That's great.
Another friend of mine came out here and mowed. I have 10 acres to mow. I mean, so it's the outpouring of just graciousness and giving and help that we received is monumental. Our friend who's a Christian singer here in town, Mallory Hope, started a GoFundMe, and that helped out in ways you can't even imagine. So I can't even. There's a list of folks that I will never be able to thank, because I couldn't provide for anyone, and they helped keep us living here and keeping my family fed and all of that kind of thing while I figured out how to stay alive.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's huge. I mean, as much as I can joke about what happened and all that kind of thing, I'll never be able to joke about, because the guitar builder community rallied around me like crazy.
That's great.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, Doug Cower was checking on me constantly.
Sweet man.
Oh my God, none better. And it was it was really, really cool. Really, really cool. I can only hope that if anybody else goes through some really, really garbage kind of stuff like that I can be there for them in the same way, and that they can experience the same kind of thing that I did.
And that is how, you take that energy where you say, I could never thank the people who've helped me. That's how you spend that energy.
Exactly.
And that's how the world should operate.
It's not hard.
It really isn't.
Number one, don't be an asshole.
Yeah. It's not that hard to not be a dick.
To not be an asshole than it is to be an asshole.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of time being an asshole, and it's work.
Yeah. No, me too. No, it's a crazy maker, and it's exhausting too. It is not exhausting to be kind to people.
No, man, it's super simple. Just do that.
And it feels great, and it's exhilarating, and you see it in people's faces, and they're happy to see you when you're kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So. Yes. There we have it. Our world problem.
We just fixed it. We
Done.
fixed it.
We made America great again.
We did. Nutter Squires 2020.
Exactly. For real. You can be the press. I'll be the vice.
You're like, I don't need to get shot.
No, man, I'm good.
So, are you back to building? Have you been in the shop?
A little, like 1-2 hour spurts, just to see what I can do. My shop's still back from NAMM.
Right.
And
your physical endurance is just not
it's
all
not
the
quite
way there.
It will be. So it's like I said, in the last week or so, since I felt better and better, I can feel everything like being cool again. So I've done a few long days, like maybe 6-7 hours or something like that. So that's where I am. I have a handful of orders that I have to get done, and then I can really start focusing on what I was trying to do with NAMM, because hell, all of that business got pushed back a year or just vanished or whatever.
Right.
So
I love your guitars, and I'm curious how a guy from West Virginia who grew up loving probably Charvels and Jacksons and Kramers, even probably those Berettas. Like I lusted after the Night Swan.
I wanted a Beretta so bad I could taste it.
Yeah. I always wanted an RG, one of those RG 550s. Always wanted one, never had one.
I got the only Ibanez I ever owned was an 540 LTD, the real thin one, because it looked like it came up used cheap in my local music store, and it looked like the one that Alex Skolnick played.
Right.
It was a killer guitar.
Also a monster guitarist and very gentleman, nice guy.
My first great guitar I bought in April of '91, and it was I still have it. It's a New York made 1989 or 90 ESP Horizon.
They were in New York?
Yeah, their home office is like 48th Street Custom was there, and then they eventually moved to California, and they were right across the street from Guitar Center, Sunset Custom.
Yeah.
But the custom stuff was made there, and so this was it looks like Michael Wilton would have played this on the Operation Mindcrime tour. It's all black,
killer
chrome hardware. It's a beautiful guitar. It's a phenomenal instrument. It's basically a Jackson soloist with 2 pickups.
Right.
But Grover, even as a kid, man, Grover was like, I'd see his picture in guitar magazines, and I was just like, whoa.
Right.
He must be the coolest dude ever.
Right.
Turns out he is.
Right. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
So what I was going to ask you is, how does a guy from West Virginia who was into hair metal, I hate that term, just who's into 80s metal.
80s rock and roll, yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, you know what? I'm going to take another sidebar. I would love to hear a lot of those records remixed. And specifically, I'd like to hear them remixed with without the gated snares and the big, so you can hear everything well, without shitty drum sounds and terrible vocal sounds. Because they were recorded in great studios and they had great mics, and, a lot of the producers they were just mixed pretty bad.
With the same mic package that everything had been recorded with since 1975, like a D12, 57 on the top, 441 on the bottom, SM81 on the hat, 421s on the toms, probably 451 AKGs on the overheads, and 414s in the room, just like everything had ever been cut.
Right. But then everyone got all happy with the lexicon or whatever.
Lexicon was Tide were probably the biggest downfall, and the SPX.
They got a little excited. They had their cocaine ears.
Yeah, new toys.
Yeah.
Well, just now, I mean, all the stuff that we hear now in the next 20 years is going to sound incredibly dated because it's going to be so wrenched in. Or at least I hope that it goes that way. Right. I would like to. I don't know if I would want to hear that stuff remixed, because it's so imprinted in my DNA, hearing it a certain way, that's just what it is.
So have you gone back and listened to a record that you really loved as a teen, though, and thought to yourself, how did I listen to this? It sounds terrible. Because I have.
Shout at the Devil.
Oh, it's terrible.
Shout at the Devil. Shout at the Devil.
Fuck, Under Lock and Key doesn't even sound good. I mean, even the guitar solos, which should be slamming, a lot of them are buried.
That one I'm okay with. It's really only Shout at the Devil, but I still love the record. And now it's like, even though I'm not crazy about the way it sounds, it's the way it sounds, and that's what I love about it. It's become the thing that I love about it. Right. Even if I listen to like Too Fast for Love sounds horrible, but I truly love that record because it's like as raw and as like nasty as it was them probably live at Gazzari's.
That sounds way better than Shout at the Devil, though.
Yeah, but and even Theater is the same way. I mean, Motley Crue is probably the only band that did, or Twisted Sister, probably the only bands that did records that I didn't like the way they sounded even then.
Right. You Can't Kill Rock and Roll is a pretty great record.
Yeah.
Like there's great jams on there.
For real.
Yeah.
For real.
Have you done any festivals? I can't imagine you've done festivals where they were on.
No. I mean, all the festivals that I did would have been the big country festivals.
Right.
Either because when I moved to Nashville in the early 2000s, if you had a record deal, chances are I did a gig or probably a tour with you. Radio tour with an acoustic guitar, or a club date here and there, or I did a full-on tour. So I played with everyone in Nashville from 2001 till about 2006. And then in early 2006, I was hired on to replace Mark Matejka in a DreamWorks band called Hot Apple Pie. And then we were quickly shuffled off. DreamWorks folded and we got shuffled off to MCA, and they didn't care about us. So basically, I was really hired on to bail water out of the boat more than I was to play guitar.
Right.
And then by October, we were dropped, and that was done. And then I got a call from this guy saying, "Hey, I need you to come out and do some acoustic gigs. New girl artist." And I was like, "Please tell me it's not that little girl that does that awful Tim McGraw song." And he was like, "Yeah, it's actually her." And I was like, "What's her name?" He said, "Taylor." So for about 8 weeks, I went out, and first and second singles, I was with Taylor Swift, and we were doing the George Strait tour. And I got called by Chris McHugh, who was the MD for Keith at the time. He said, "Hey, what are you doing on Monday?" And it was Friday, and I was in Idaho. And I said, "What do you want me to do on Monday?" "I'll start walking to Nashville right now." And from there on in, late 2006, I was hired back on. And I was Keith's guitar tech in 2000 or 2001, something like that.
Huh.
For about 6 months.
How much time did you spend in between these gigs, like downtime? Because when I hear it like this, it sounds like you were busy week to week.
I was. I absolutely. Yeah. I used to have a saying that I wanted a T-shirt that said, "You paying, I'm playing." I answered the phone and just said, "Yes," not hello. 2005, I did 150 fly dates, and every single one of them was different. Somebody different. I would look down at the set list and go, what key is this one in?
Right.
You know.
Well, and that's a testament to your ability to adapt and recognize sort of the institutional Nashville music, right? The songwriting process. Would there be number charts next to the songs for you?
Be flying to whatever gig it was with my headphones on, writing charts.
Right.
And sometimes for the band, like I'd be the MD and I would have picked the band, and we all hadn't gotten together to rehearse any of this stuff. There was a Canadian artist, Carolyn Dawn Johnson. The first time I played with her was at Rupp Arena in Kentucky. 13,000 people, and the bass player and I introduced each other to ourselves as we're walking on stage.
Right. On a scale of 1 to 10, like, and we're operating under the assumption that everyone that's walking onto those stages is a strong link in the chain, right? Like whoever the MD is has a lot of trust. And for people who are listening that don't know what an MD is, it's not a doctor. It is a musical director. Although, yeah. So
it's heavy. I mean, I tell everyone, your ability here in Nashville is assumed. If you're in the room, they already think you can play. What they're trying to find out with you is whether or not they can live with you on a 45-foot rolling tube for the year. Again, that brings us back to rule number 1. Don't be an asshole. Because if you're an asshole, you're not going to be there.
Right. And word travels fast.
Yeah. Oh, for real. You'll get shut down quickly. Now, as a guitar player, though, you have to be, or actually as any musician, you have to be able to sing. If you can't sing, I used to tell guys that all the time. It'd be in, Butt Sniff, Idaho, or whatever, some festival, some local.
I've been through Butt Sniff.
Yeah, for real. And he'd come up to me and go, "Man, I play guitar. I want to move to Nashville. How can I get a gig?" And I go, "Well, do you sing?" "Well, no." "Well, man, I'm not being a jerk, but pray you never come up against me in an audition."
Right.
Because I play about 17 different instruments and I sing in 4 octaves. So,
and that's a thing, right? I mean, you also should be able to play probably
whatever.
You should be able to flat pick, finger pick, play electric, play mandolin, probably play at least some steel, probably be able to
keys, be able to sing whatever part that they toss at you at any given time. The answer should always be yes, whether or not you know how to do it or not. Figure it out. Right. You'll always be able to figure out whatever the part is on whatever instrument that they call for. If it's bouzouki, do you have one? No. Can you get me one? Sure.
Right. All right. And a lot of the parts on these songs that are committed aren't really complicated because complicated parts don't translate over the radio. There's a reason Yngwie never got a lot of radio play.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking, but I mean, if you look at Yngwie's structure, it's still not tough. It's still that all is. If I'm speaking at it in metal terms, it would be like, E, C, and D, or A, F, and G. But if I'm in Nashville terms, it's 6 minor 4 5.
Right.
So that's once you look at the things like that, then hell, you can figure out anything.
Right.
But yeah, when you're in the room, just know the part, because everybody that comes in is going to be able to play your part. There's always going to be some cat that's going to be half your age that's willing to work for half of your money.
Right.
So stay on your A game.
I would never be able to make it there.
Tough, man. It's work. It's a hustle. It's a total hustle. And if you're fortunate enough to get onto an A-level tour like I fortunately did, in a few different instances, then man, it's pretty rewarding. But then once you're there, it's the same thing as like whenever you when you get signed, getting signed is not the ticket to being a megastar. Then the real work begins.
That's just getting signed is like being shown the way to the platform before you get to the high wire.
Here's the key to the front door. Exactly. That's all it is.
Here's the tightrope.
Uh-huh.
Careful.
Yeah. So that's what it's like here.
Right. Jesus.
Keep up with it.
So when you showed up in 2000, was your first gig being a guitar tech? Is that the work that you were?
Technically, well, actually, I moved to Nashville because by that time I decided I had aged out as a rock and roller. I was what? I knew that rock and roll either happens between 18 and 25, and I'd already aged out. So I was going to make guitars. I had met a guy named Don Garrosh from Garrosh Guitars, and Tom.
You cut out there in the second name. Who?
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom Anderson.
Oh, him.
Yeah, that guy. So those two guys showed me that humans made guitars. Up until that point, I always figured that machines and factories made guitars. I told Don, I was like, man, I'd love to come to the factory sometime. And he goes, factory? We make these in my parents' garage. And Tom was the same way. He was like, yeah, I used to wind the pickups in my kitchen.
Right.
Like, oh. So that sent me on the path of, I'd always been really good with my hands. Dad, even though Dad played pedal steel in the country band, was a master electrician and contractor. So Dad could make anything. Was a master welder and all that kind of stuff. So I'd seen what a guy can do. And then I found out that a guy that can do anything can make the thing that I love the most.
Right.
So I started messing with guitars, and I'd always done pickup swaps, or done, even in the late 80s, would put together parts casters from stuff from Stumac or whatever. But wow, now I can take a board and I can turn that into a neck with just a few simple hand tools. Right on, let's do that. So when I moved to Nashville, I had already started making guitars a couple of years prior and was going to just make guitars, but nobody really knew who I was, and I needed to eat. And then I went out as Keith's guitar tech for a little while. And then he was just on his first solo record. He had just come off of a band record called The Ranch on Capitol. Oddly enough, the bass player in The Ranch, he and I had the same set of musician friends back in West Virginia. His name's Jerry Flowers. Jerry's still there. He's the MD on Keith's band now. So I went out and tech for Keith for about 6 months, and I really wanted to be in the band. He wanted a guitar player that sang, and I said, well, hey man, that's kind of what I do. And he goes, yeah, but who'd be my guitar tech? And my immediate response was, I don't care. So
I'll do both.
I went and left and started finding gigs, and then the playing career got in the way of making stuff. I still made things and, built guitars, or would make a neck for somebody, or I would make a Fender replacement neck or something like that for someone.
During your time of touring, were you out with a telly?
You have to have a Telecaster to live here.
Right.
It's
like the passport.
Yeah, for real. And I'd had the same Telecaster since I was 14. It's a 75 Tele. It's and it's everything that a 70s Fender should. So I would take that, but in Keith's band, I was hired because since he was the primary guitar player and was a Tele slinging guy, I considered him Malcolm, or I considered him Angus, and I needed to be Malcolm. So I played usually humbucker stuff in the Marshalls, where he would have a set of, blackface bandmasters or high power twins or something like that, and a Tele and a Klon and a delay pedal. And I would also have a blackface bassman in my rig that I could switch to with my Klon to mix the thing if I needed to, be the stunt double. But usually it was my 83 JCM 800 and or later my Sir SL 67s, or 68s rather, the 100 watters. into 412s and Les Pauls or PRSs or something like that. Or I even toured with a one humbucker Charvel that I had them build me. I wanted Van Halen 1 for the country market, so the Fender Custom Shop did a 2-tone Sunburst on it.
Oh, that's great.
One humbucker, one volume.
Hardtail?
No, Strat trim, like truly VH1.
Right. That's hot. What PRS did you use?
Several. I had one that Paul it was like it was a single cut that was just in his office that he gave me. But then they made me 3 custom 22s.
Oh, great.
One, I got to pick the lumber. Actually, I made him do it out of his vault. That's right beside him. He goes, pick out something. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm going to make you a guitar. I go, you do it. He goes, why? I said, because I want the bragging rights that Paul reads. I have a photo of it somewhere, of it all wrapped up in plastic, just the lumber with wax pencil that says Brian Nutter on it.
Nice. That
guitar on the back of the headstock, on all 3 of those, on the back of the headstock says, custom made for Brian Nutter.
Yeah. Yeah, the private stock shop there is
everything you would expect them to be. And John Sir was the same way. I had already had a Sir Strat, which oddly enough was the guitar I was playing the night that I met you.
Probably right.
It was.
Yeah, we have a funny history. I was playing when I was home from touring with Duff, I would do that live karaoke band gig, which was like my crash course into just a glimpse into the world you thrived in, because it was hard. I thought that I had to learn all the songs, like really learn them. And it was, I wore a beard at the time when I got the gig, and I got so stressed out that I got stress-related alopecia, and my beard started falling out in patches. Yeah, because there were guys in the band that could really do the gig. There were over 500 songs in the book. Mm-hmm. So I thought that I had to really know 500 plus songs inside and out. And the truth was, I didn't. I had to understand the pop song structure, and I kind of had to know the bridge.
That's it.
The bridge is the only wild card, really.
Always. Yeah.
So after a while, someone hit me to that, and they were like, just fucking listen to the songs, man.
Yeah, that's it.
Like make a playlist on your iPod and listen to them, and listen to them a lot. And it's what I do to this day. So, have I sent you the Couchras playlist?
No.
I will do that immediately after we're done here, because we will do a video. Right?
One.
Yeah.
One. Yeah.
Yes. And so
I remember my manager booked that thing, and it was at the Snoqualmie.
Yeah, the casino.
He said, you're going to do an acoustic set, and then you're going to sit in playing electric guitar with the karaoke band. All right.
Yeah.
So I showed up with my Sir Strat, no pedals. There was if I remember correctly, it was like a Fender Hot Rod Blues DeVille or something like that.
Carvin.
And then said, what key is this one in?
Yeah, no, I remember.
Yep.
I remember. And that was it.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what. I mean, the truth is also that even though there was over 500 songs, there were 500 or more songs that could be called at any given time. Really, people are so predictable. There were like really 30 songs that you did all the time. You did Wanted Dead or Alive for sure.
Yep.
You probably did Baby Got Back.
Total Eclipse of the Heart for the ambitious girl in the room.
Right. Which actually was a pretty fun song and an interesting arrangement. And there's some modulation and key change,
Yeah.
There's an interesting bit. That's an interesting bit of songwriting.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're always probably going to do like
What's the
Don't-
big? What's that?
or Don't Stop Believing.
Oh yeah, every night.
Yeah,
Every night.
Margaritaville and Brown
Living
Eyed
on
Girl.
a Prayer, Brown Eyed Girl. There was also Here I Go Again. We did a lot for whatever reason. That one got picked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But yeah, I really stressed myself out. It was terrible. But then yeah, flash forward, whatever, years and years and years, and a lot of the folks that were on that gig, they're all a bunch of great folks, and they can play. And Pete, the guitar player, really, like, he knew those songs. Like, he's a
Yeah.
savant. Like, he learns songs inside and out, and he just has a brain that remembers. He soaks it up, and it doesn't go away. He's the guy that once a year, fucking Come On Eileen comes up, and he knows the song. He knows all the changes and the breaks and the whatever.
Yeah. All the hook lines and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
All the harmonies.
What I call my RAM. So, I power down and, turn back on. That's gone.
Right. Well, yeah, because you're on to the next set of 20 songs, man. It's crazy. Yeah. Okay, so I was trying to ask you 20 minutes ago how and we took a little side journey. How does a guy from West Virginia who was into Jakey Lee and George Lynch and probably like leopard print guitars.
Oh, yeah.
Come and then move to Nashville, get a bunch of desirable gigs there. How do you eventually design very mid-century jet set looking like stylish guitars? Like,
Always fascinated with even though I was, I grew up with Star Wars, I was always more fascinated with Star Trek.
Really?
And because my dad loved Star Trek, and anytime it was on, we would always watch it. And James Bond movies. And so that whole, 60s cool just looked fucking cool to me. And then you mix in my favorite guitar ever, which is a Gibson Explorer. So real straight lines in that, 60s sci-fi kind of thing. And then it just sort of all makes sense. And
are you also a fan of mid-century furniture?
Oh my gosh. And architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few mid-century, home things that I follow on Instagram. It's usually like me and Dean Dale Ray that are always liking all of that stuff.
Right. Fucking Ames chairs and shit.
Oh man, all of that stuff. So, that was all. I always just loved stuff from the '60s, and it wasn't so much music, other than the Beatles or English things that were happening, but it was just that sort of California cool thing that I just loved it.
Yeah.
And it made a lot of sense to me. So whenever I was making guitars, it was well, everyone makes a Fender guitar.
Right.
And of course you have to start doing that because I feel like that's sort of your passport into making guitars. And I did that.
That's a foundational thing.
For real. So, and then I don't want to do that. I mean, I love that stuff, and I'm fascinated with all the history of it, and I know where all of it came from, and I have a lot of that stuff. I was an endorsee of all of those companies, but I don't want to be that guy. So let's do something that's truly me, and let's stick with that. even in my playing career, whenever I stuck to what was me, like sometimes I would take out a deluxe reverb and a Telecaster, which wasn't me. I needed my Marshall behind me, and something with a humbucker in it. So whenever
that's the tool that you feel
Yeah.
most comfortable getting the job done with.
I mean, I have the schematic to my '83 Marshall tattooed on my left arm.
Your 800.
Yeah,
What is it? Is it the single channel 50 watt? That's the
2203
one. That's
vertical
the
input.
one.
I played through it the first time when I was 12, and I finally got to buy it on my 21st birthday with student loan money.
Good man.
Bought the head and the slant 412 for $600.
Wow.
The third owner.
I only had one, and I had that amp. And I was on a tour. We were doing South by Southwest, and I was like, well, I know that it was already 2001. Mm-hmm. I was like, already, eBay had already ruined the pawn shop game, But I went, not a very popular item in Austin, Texas is in 2001, especially, maybe now, but a PV 5150 amp.
Yeah. Oh, God, you could have got $250, I bet.
I did get it I think I got it for less than $250. And
Yeah.
so threw that into the van as a backup to my SLO 100, right? And then we're out, and I have that thing in the van for just a couple of weeks, and we are in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I wake up in the morning and I go to this guitar store, and they have the JCM 800, the 50 watt, single channel JCM 800 there, and they have it in there, and it's like $600. It might have been $550, and I said, hey, what do you guys think about this 5150? Pretty hot, right? And they were like, eh. And I was like, well, what if I gave you one of these LTD Vipers too? And I had gotten a couple of them for free, but I was a fool. They were like, yeah, you can have 3 guitars, whatever you want. And I should have just grabbed the George Lynch Kamikaze straight out of the gate.
Yeah.
But I couldn't make myself I couldn't make myself do it, because I was looking for guitars that I was going to actually take on the road, and I realized like I don't ever need a guitar change. Like it's one guitar sound all the way through the set. It's just like unless I break a string, it doesn't matter. So
what song in E?
Yeah, exactly. E, just E.
Yeah.
So. I gave them the 5150, the Viper, and $100, and I got that JCM 800. And later, I ended up having to sell it. I had a bad accident, busted my leg up, and I sold my the first Cole that I ever got in like 1997. Do you know Cole?
No.
Oh. Dude, you gotta go check out.
Yeah. Sorry. I heard cold.
Oh, yeah. No, Cole.
He's like every uncle.
What's that?
He's like every guitar maker's uncle.
No, he is definitely a person has inspired people to build guitars for a long time.
Yeah.
He's incredible. What a dude.
Yeah.
What a
Big
dude.
time.
Yeah. He's like the dude. But yeah, I had to get rid of that thing too, and that's the one that got away. Like
mine was my Hot Rod 50, my Soldano.
Yeah.
And since then, like Mike Soldano is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And so is Jim Brown, the guy that designed the 5150.
Oh yeah.
Ow! This is Bruce.
Bruce?
Yeah, because he's got sort of like a Batman cowl.
Oh, yeah. The guy who designed the 5150 is he at Gibson now?
No, it was an EVH.
Right.
Yep. Doing all of Ed's amps again.
Yeah. That Hot Rod 50, I think that I like better than the SLO 100.
Really?
Yeah, I never really connected. I mean, I didn't really understand how to use that to its potential.
Yeah, that amp it's truly magic once you figure it out.
Yeah, I think I didn't understand that I didn't need to use all the gain all the time back then.
That's the thing.
And that was my error, user error.
Man, that's every dude's 20-year-old error whenever you have a high gain amp.
But it was a SLO from the probably 97. It was old. Yeah. It was like not that's like yeah.
That's when I had the Hot Rod 50. Actually, it was 97.
Yeah,
I bought it at West LA Music when I was working there.
I just got an aux box, and now because I have a house, but I don't have like a detached place to make a racket.
Right.
So I've just been using Sims forever.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are great.
Oh my God.
The UA Sims are really good. I love them. And they come right in the, in the interface. That's awesome.
I did an entire Max Effects too, and it was amazing.
Oh yeah. And convincing, like, non-high gain sounds. It's great.
Yeah, real. Yeah. And I was basically, I put in my old rig is all I did, was just like plug in my entire old head switching rig and my pedal board into that, and my 20 space GAC rack into that particular unit. And that's what I did.
Right. Just like program it up, like virtual style. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But now that I have that aux, now I'm all fucking fired up again to start trying to get some amps.
All of my like my session amps, like my old Marshall is 6 feet behind me. That, my 65 Blackface Bassman, my HC30 Matchless, all there.
Right.
But I don't. When I play stuff in the shop, I have like all of my 80s gear. Like I've got my Galleon Kruger 250 ML.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, I got a couple of those actually. Only one's working.
Original speakers?
What's that?
Are they original speakers? Are they all corroded out?
One of them, it's original speakers, and I had to replace them in the other.
Yeah.
Get all the foam's going.
Yeah.
But then the thing I play most is what I call the Dad Rack, which looks like the Musician's Friend catalog from 1991. Right. So there's an APA MP1, there's a Quadriverb GT, like a Digitech harmonizer, a lot of Rocktron stuff like a compressor and Hush and a Moss Valve power amp, and it's
the
a 14.
JMP is no joke though. That thing is killer.
Oh my God! I mean the it's actually the MP1, the ADA one, and it's that thing. It's ferocious. It nobody really. It's now starting to get the credit it deserves. But yeah, that's what I play throughout. The most, and I've got two of those like 212 ADA cabinets. All of that stuff. It sits against the wall. That's what I do demos with.
Oh, that's sick. What was it? What was the Marshall thing? The JMP one, right?
JMP. Yeah,
and then the 100-watt stereo power amp that they made for that thing, the Power Block.
I also have the one space valve state one that I haven't used in a while. I use that in my B rig because I would use that Moss valve. Sometimes I would. One tour I did with Keith, I had a wet dry wet system, so it was 3 412s on stage with center dry and then just stereo effects, and the Moss valve powered the effects.
Were you guys switched on ears?
Oh yeah, but Keith liked to have live amps on stage, so we were loud, and I mean like Kiss loud,
right?
AC/DC loud on stage. He was at his mic position, coming from his wedges and from his amps. If you put the dB meter on your shoulder, he was 120 dB in each direction.
Really?
Yeah. I was 117 just coming from behind me because I didn't have wedges. He just like felt air move. There would be girls like, front row in front of my rig just getting their eyebrows welded off.
Right.
Going, I hear him. And in between songs, I'd look at him and go, you didn't stand here to hear.
Right. Also, if you wanted to hear him, you should have stood in front of him.
You should have been at front of house. If you wanted to hear him sing, you should be at front of house.
Okay, so what was the very first touring gig, and did you walk into that with like absolute confidence, or were you like, I'm just gonna fake it till I make it? Or were you like feeling good because you had your whole LA experience and played plenty of gigs?
The first touring gig was here in Nashville, and it was like, well, yeah, I can do this. I mean, good Lord, a monkey can do this.
Right.
All I have to do is just, play the numbers, play the parts on the record, and sing the parts on the record. Ta-ta. And we're done. By that time, in rock and roll bands, I toured up and sat down in a van in the East Coast. I had, done sessions in Los Angeles and everything from like, commercials to audio for animation to engineering stuff for Bone Thugs and Harmony. So yeah, by the time I got to Nashville, it was like, yeah, I can play this.
Right.
And I'd already been on the road with Nashville acts, for that 6 months with Keith, going, well, hell, I used to think that Nashville guys were wizards, but they're not. They're just dudes like I am. And they actually want more guys like me now. They don't want the Brent Mason wannabes. They want old hair metal guys. So here I am.
Can you do all the telly licks?
Now I can't. After I've been, you still have to learn that stuff, and you have to be able to pull it out. But yeah, I can do all of that stuff.
It is.
It's just it's a way of thinking. That way of thinking made more sense to me from being with Dad and getting that foundational, like late 60s, 70s country stuff. But like jazz makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't hear that way. I can fake my way through jazz, but I don't sound like a jazz guy.
Could your dad sneak his way through a jazz standard on the steel?
Never. No. That's
because that shit is amazing.
That's like the C6 in Nashville. That's called the 2-week notice neck.
Is that like Buddy Emmons? Is that like?
Yeah, Buddy was great with that kind of stuff, but all the Nashville stuff came from E9. That's pretty much, and truly, all of the E9 stuff happens within what guitar players would consider open E tuning, with an additional like G sharp on the top, and then 2 other strings playing lower notes for other licks. But it's all of the country stuff comes from E9.
The thing that is like baffling to me is that like there's not a lot of movement up on top, up on the deck, right? It's all right hand, slight left hand movements, and knee and pedal moves.
The majority of country music happens on pedal steel and pedals 1 and 2. Pedal 1, if you mash down, if you hit that open E chord and you mash down pedals 1 and 2, it will bend the strings to give you your 4 chord. It will give you an A. So, but if you leave pedal 2 down and lift pedal 1, it will give you E sus. So it moves your G sharp to an A.
Right.
If you leave pedal 1 down, that will move you to your... It's been a while since I've played the pedal steel. It's a minor. It's either 6 or 3. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it's 6. So that would take you to C sharp minor.
And so you're always thinking about numbers. Like you're always thinking it's a bunch of fucking math.
Think in numbers.
Right.
Every time I do a session now, my big joke, whenever they hand out the charts, because whenever you do a session, like a demo session, you come in, they'll play you the acoustic guitar vocal, or like the work tape is what they call it. And you'll have your chart. And as soon as they hand out the chart, and it's just a title, a key with a circle around it, and then all the numbers, like verse 111, 444, whatever. But I'll always joke and I go, oh, I've played this before.
Right. So I've never seen one of those sessions, But I know that in studios all over Nashville, every day of the week,
Dude,
someone comes in with 10 songs or 12 songs. There's a house band that day.
they get
Maybe
tired.
it's,
Yeah.
and they basically, just like you said, like there's a demo tape or a recording or whatever. It gets played. You're like, okay, the melody here's the pushes. Okay, cool. There's the
Yeah.
chart.
How well before you go red, you'll go down one time and then usually a second time. And as a guitar player, you're thinking two other passes ahead. So I'm thinking about, I'm going to lay this down now and then come back and they'll say, anyone have any fixes when the whole band goes down? Yeah, I need between second verse and chorus, the 4 going into the chorus.
And they'll just run it down for you, and you'll
Everybody
touch
fixes
that up real quick.
Then you'll go back to the top.
And you don't go into the control room for that. You're still out in the room.
Still sitting there. And then they'll go for an acoustic guitar double. And at that point, I'll lay down a secondary electric guitar pass. The drummer might lay down like shaker or something like that. The piano guy who's doing keys might lay down a B3 part. It's all very incredibly efficient. It's not like doing a session in Los Angeles at all.
Right.
It's clockwork. The joke is, how many songs are we doing today? 5 o'clock.
Right. So I wrote a song with Trey, that guy I was telling you about earlier.
Yeah.
Me, Trey, and Duff up in Vancouver. They wrote, a number of songs together. I was on this one trip with them, and we wrote maybe 2 or 3 songs. And I was so fired up about this one song that I, because I didn't know any better, I kind of bullied this song into getting put into one of these sessions. And so it costs a couple bucks, right? Everyone's got to throw some bucks in to get this thing done. But it got out, went out to some people. Because then those tapes, those sessions get circulated around to people, and
Yeah.
Oh, I was certain that I had a hit, and months had gone by, and I just was excitable. I'm a fool. A lot of times I'm a big fool, and so I kept bothering Trey, and he was like, "Look, man, and he's a very nice guy. He's a very, very sweet guy, and his dad wrote something. His dad wrote some shit.
Everyone's dad down here did.
Right.
I mean, believe it's like rip over guys that had #1 songs, or just not guys, but like just people in general. You can trip over people. There's a girl that lives really close to out here that had a deal on Capitol. She has a house cleaning business now.
Right.
Had some serious success.
Yeah.
Now here in Nashville, it's not called a record deal; it's called a record ordeal.
Right.
By the way.
Huh?
I got that from John Bollinger, by the way, the guy that does all premier guitars.
Yeah.
He and I, he was the MD and I was the other guitar player on a TV show called Nashville Star. It was sort of the Nashville version of American Idol.
Right. Wow.
Like,
well, poor Trey. I just fucking hounded this guy because I was so foolishly proud of this song. And he was like, "Look, it's interesting, and it's got a thing to it, but honestly, I think it'll be a waste of money to get it tracked. And I've written 25 songs that are a lot better than this that I haven't submitted myself because I know they won't get picked up. But I just fucking hounded this guy, and he was so graceful and did it." So I have the recording still.
That's awesome. I probably know everybody that played on it.
I'll bet you do. Yeah, I'll bet you do. But yeah, he explained the process to me, and I was just floored. He's like, "Yeah, typically the whole thing's done. Like, people hear the song, and within 3 passes, the whole thing is done.
Yeah.
Vocals, harmonies, everything.
Yeah, a solid 45 minutes is about all it's ever spent on a song for a demo.
I was stunned.
Mm-hmm.
Still certain that it was going to be a big hit. Maybe
I always love vocal sessions. Whenever getting to do a vocal session was great because I could ride my motorcycle. I didn't have to carry gear or anything.
What do you ride?
Usually, I'm a huge English bike fan for street bikes. So,
Triumph.
So that's what my ride arm is an exploded version of a 500 Triumph motorcycle engine. And I've gone through, 60s Nortons and BSAs, and I have a project bobber that's been waiting for me for a long time for a 68 Triumph. I've got a more modern 2007 Bonneville that I rode around for a long time. Mm-hmm. I raced vintage stuff like Andrew McKeague. Actually.
I was gonna say I was waiting for a pause to see if you knew Andrew.
That's how I met Andrew, was through that. He and I had a mutual friend that was in Keith's band, a guy named Brad Rice, who played with Sunvolt, and he played with Ryan Adams. So Brad always told me, he's like, my buddy Andrew plays with the presidents of the United States. He does that stuff. And I bumped into Andrew. The first time I met him was actually outside of Spokane.
At a race.
We had a day off, and I took my Triumph out to the race just to go see. And we hung out. Yeah, he and I have a mutual love for single cylinder BSAs.
Oh yeah, no, he's in it. We share. I say we shared a garage in West Seattle when we both lived there, but really he just let me put my bike there.
Well, I have for my racing bikes are all early 70s, like 70 to 71 Yamaha 2-strokes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, he had an impressive collection of bikes.
Still does. He's got some stuff that Dick Mann owned, which is just mind-boggling to me.
Andrew is a dude. He's one of the dudes.
For real.
He's a real deal dude. And a solid dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll call him up in the middle of the night and he'll help you out. He showed up with his van a couple times to help me out when my bike broke down. He's good that way. So I swear I saw you make I'm gonna fucking non sequitur real quick. I swear I saw you make a post that said that while you were down and out, mm-hmm. you focused some time on doing some CNC programming brush up.
Yeah, I had always toyed with the idea of doing an import line of the Astro Captain and the Astro Commander. The Captain having the 3 pickups and the vibrato, and the Commander being a much more simple, same body shape and all of that, but basically with 2 humbuckers and very traditional wiring. And I had toyed really 5 or 6 years ago when I really restarted the guitar company, was considering doing one, and I had a couple prototypes made, and I sort of learned CAD enough to draw the plans to have the prototypes made. Those were super strats. That's when I realized I'll get swallowed if I don't do something more original. So, and I knew that, our mutual friend John Sullivan from Sully Guitars.
Love Sully.
Oh, another super solid cat. He hooked me up with the folks that are doing his stuff, and that's right whenever everything bad happened to me. And I knew I was going to have to submit CAD drawings of this stuff, and I didn't have them. So it was like, well, if I can't make stuff with my hands, I can at least sit here with my laptop. And I got deep into it, and I've since really, really done it. And now which is even better for me as a teacher at MI, because now I can show, look, here's how you can draw a guitar and have it toolpathed and ready to rock from nothing to ready to go on a machine in about 8 hours.
Wow. So wait a minute, let's back up for a second. So the import line is green light. It is
almost.
It's go.
Almost. Yeah, it's good. it was go late January, 1st of February, and now it's stalled. But just this week is whenever I've reached back out to them and going, hey, I'm ready.
You're power breaking right now.
For real.
Yeah. When do you think that you'll submit and have your first shipment? Like a year?
In the first quarter, like just after the first of the year.
Really? That's not very far away.
In the next 6 months. Yeah.
Wow. Have you announced it?
No.
Fucking Couchriff's exclusive.
So it will be a simplified version of the Astro Captain. It won't have all of the switching system that the typical stuff does, but it will still have 3 pickups and the vibrato. I'm hoping to put 3 P90 humbucker sized pickups in it.
Rad. I like that option because I love P90s, but if someone wants to fuck with it and make it, whatever.
Real.
Yeah.
Then the Astro Commander, again, is the same guitar with 2 humbuckers and no vibrato. It'll have a hardtail. And it's wired like an Explorer. Volume, tone, 3-way switch. Ta-da, rock and roll machine. Plug and play.
Right. I love
5 different. The Commander will have all 60s style, like pastel colors and a 2-tone burst. And the Captain will have 60s style metallic colors and a 3-tone burst.
Rad. When you say metallic, you mean like metal flake or glitter?
Sparkle, but I mean like, shoreline gold, burgundy mist, ice blue.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah. Oh, that's going to be sweet, man.
And the sparkle stuff will get reserved for what I do here.
Yeah. And as far as stuff that you're doing at home, do you have any, or in Tennessee there, any plans for anything else?
Well, at NAMM, Summer NAMM last year, I had gently nudged out the Admiral that at that time I was calling the Nova. But out of respect to Dennis Fano, who has Novo guitars, particularly here in town, I decided to change that. Since I have the Astro Captain and Commander, we made this one the Admiral. So the Admiral's a set neck chambered guitar, and I took 2 of those to Winter NAMM in January. One had one humbucker was matte black with all the binding and red binding all the way around. A little electronic wizardry that I typically do. But then the other one was just like gold sparkle with 2 mini humbuckers that I designed they're not traditional mini hums. They're that size. So if you wanted to swap them out for a traditional mini hum, you could. But mine are.
You could almost put a soap bar. Can you put a soap bar in a mini humbucker slot?
No, you can't. You would have to put like a true mini hum in this. But then there's that as well.
Yeah.
And I did the chambered version for all those dudes out there. They're like, man, 8 pounds is too heavy. God, that's a huge pet peeve of mine.
You wouldn't last a minute in the 70s, bro.
First question anybody ever asks is, what's it weigh? Who cares? Right. I carried a Marshall half stack. You want to know why? Because I wanted a Marshall half stack. What's it weigh? A lot. I was 145 pounds at that point. I didn't care. My rig weighed more than I did.
Right. You use it because it sounds amazing.
Made the sound that I wanted. Yeah.
Right. It's not
you can't live with 8.5 pounds on your shoulder for 45 minutes.
Right. On your whole physical frame, you can't hold up another.
For real. Yeah. Right. Even with Keith, I used a double neck EDS 1275.
Right.
A lot.
Really?
And a Les system. Yeah. Like 7 or 8 songs I played that guitar. Because I actually had installed piezo bridges so it could do electric and acoustic sounds at the same time or separately on both necks.
Oh, wow.
So it was a useful workhorse.
And
But
you didn't have to have an acoustic 12 string out.
exactly, and I could double parts at the same time, like electric and acoustic at the same time.
Right.
But
And you
I
fucking look cool when you.
I mean, come on, for real.
Yeah.
Chicks dig that stuff. That's why we all start playing guitar to begin.
Yeah, let's not kid ourselves.
Lying.
Let's not kid ourselves.
So, but we would do like, for band rehearsals and production rehearsals would last 7-8 hours, and I'd have that stuff on.
Yeah.
And did I care? No, because that's what I wanted to play, man. Oh, my guitar has to weigh 6 pounds. Well, go lift weights or, eat Wheaties or something.
Right. I mean, I've owned a guitar. I've owned a couple of guitars that weighed over 12 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Easy.
Mm-hmm.
An electrical guitar company.
Yo, God, right out of the gate. Of course that weighs a ton because it's got an aluminum neck on it.
It's got an aluminum neck and it was a plexi body.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Did Dave?
Baritone.
Did Dave Johnson make the body for that?
I don't know who. Like the guy Kevin.
Okay.
Is that his name? Kevin Burkett?
Yeah, he's the electrical. But Dave here in Nashville, who's also an instructor with me at MI, he does a lot of plexi stuff and does a lot of stuff with neck on it.
Got it.
Yeah.
No,
so
I got this from Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the only guitar I've ever owned I got my first guitar in 1985 or 1986. I got my first guitar.
Me too.
So that's the only guitar that I had to tell myself, I am not tough enough for this thing. And Kevin told me so. Kevin was like, this is going to be a bear to wrestle. It's going to be very difficult to play. Are you sure this is what you want? And I was like, yeah, man, I'm strong.
Mm-hmm. I had a 79 Strat that was made out of baseball bat ash.
Oh, yeah, those things are fucking...
That was 13, 14 pounds. One of my guitar techs called it the Penance Strat. Like, you must be Catholic. Oddly enough, that was Trace Foster, the guy that went on to do Joe Perry. If you ever see videos of me doing the TC Electronics tone print, Trace is the guy driving the computer.
Oh, yeah.
So that guitar was easily the greatest sounding Stratocaster I ever had. And for whatever dumb reason, I got rid of it. And even 2 owners later always contacted me to say, why did you get rid of this thing? It sounds amazing. And I always, that's another one of the few guitars that got away.
Right.
The second one was an Epiphone Chet Atkins. It didn't look like, it wasn't an acoustic. It looked like a Gretsch. That got away from me. And a blue Les Paul Studio Light that now belongs to JT Woodruff, the lead singer in Hawthorne Heights.
Studio Light, like the thin body
sounding guitar. No, it wasn't thin body. It was a studio that had been chambered, but it was just a great sounding guitar.
Huh.
Trans blue, black hardware.
Right.
Killer guitar. He still has it. Won't give it back to me.
That's a strange combination, very unclassic combination.
Mm-hmm.
How much would you, and there's no wrong answer. How much would you imagine a guitar like in your hands based on its color or its like glittery type finish, knowing like over the years, like early on, you're probably like, nah, I want a workhorse guitar. But once you got up on a stage under some lights, you're like, well, shit, nothing wrong with a little flash and a little glitter, right?
I've always been fascinated with, again, that hot rod culture. So sparkle always attracted me. Didn't matter what it was. If it had glitter blown on it, I loved it. And occasionally I would see a soloist or a Rhodes with a glitter finish on it. And God, I would lust after that stuff so much. I would see old Gretsch duo jets and that kind of thing, which is drum covering. It wasn't even paint.
Right.
And I would lust after that. So the glitter thing always appealed to me. The thing that appealed to me the least, Sunburst.
Yeah.
Like my least favorite color ever on a Les Paul is Heritage Cherry Sunburst.
No, the cherry's terrible.
My primary Les Paul is a 77 standard, and it died in the flood. And Gibson Repair and Restoration took it apart and rebuilt it for me.
Wow.
The guy who did the work is now the head of Glazer Instruments here in town, doing repair. And he said, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to recreate this finish. And I said, good.
You're like, can you make it dirty lemon burst?
He goes, what color do you want? I said, gold. Make it gold everywhere. Top, sides.
Oh, really?
Back of the neck. So I have a 1977 Les Paul Standard redone by Gibson that's all gold.
Even the face of the headstock?
No, face of the headstock is still black, just like it should be. But think gold top, but paint the back of the neck, back of the headstock, sides and back, gold.
Wow.
It's stellar. It probably weighs 10 pounds, and it's rocking.
Worth every ounce.
I'll be buried with that, my Les Paul Custom, my 82 Explorer, and my Marshall, without question.
Explorer. You know what I love? I love a good Hamer, like Blitz.
Man, I wanted a Californian.
Yeah.
In '89, so like it was either a Beretta, a Soloist, or that ESP Horizon that I just wanted so bad, and ESP Horizon came to me. It found me.
Yeah. Do you think that was there ever a moment when you were like, all right, I'm gonna design some guitars, maybe I want to have some straight lines. Did it ever occur to you that maybe you were going to make metal, like sort of BC Rich style metal guitars, like pointy or horned guitars?
No, because I knew that everyone had that metal category covered.
Yeah.
Just like everyone had that vintage category covered.
Right.
Doing what I do, making that like retro futuristic Jetsons looking thing was going to be niche. But I don't need everyone, you know. I only need a few people a year to be into it.
Right.
And that's totally cool with me. I don't want to be a millionaire. So far, that's working out just fine.
Mission accomplished. Me too, kid. Oh, shit. And so behind you there is your shop. Mm-hmm. And in your shop, you're doing everything by hand.
Yeah, old school. There's a, pin router, and it's a condensed version of what would have been the Fender factory in 1965. Or hell, 1983.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you shape a neck? How does that happen?
I do it traditionally. If you do it with hand tools, you would do it with a series of like rasps, files, scrapers, straight edges, a contour gauge, and all of that kind of stuff. I do it initially. I do all of the neck shaping the same way Fender would have done it, in the same way. The way I base a lot of the way I make stuff is the way Grover would have done it. That sort of WWGD. So I shape I just hog away the initial stuff on the router table using a roundover bit. And then I go to what's called a Deadhead Sander that I made. You can't buy one. I'm surprised Grizzly hasn't come out with one. But it's sort of a sideways belt sander that you can see photos of the old Fender factory of these guys using these. And they're sort of rolling the neck, right?
Right. So
I can make a neck.
So the sander is stationary.
Uh-huh.
And you're rolling the wood.
Yep.
Right.
So using two necks that I keep on the wall as a guide. One's a Charvel neck and one's a Strat neck. The Strat neck's a little thicker, and I have spec that I want to hit at the first fret and at the 12th fret as far as taper goes. So I want I want 8100ths at the first fret and 9100ths at the 12th fret. And then the shape, I keep my little contour gauge, check that back and forth. So from square stock to ready for finish sanding, it takes me about 20 minutes to shape the back of the neck.
And there's not like, you don't have, there's not like a little tool with a notch that you like run down the neck, or
well,
that
that's
you...
what the contour gauge is. If you look at and the contour gauge that I have is from Craftsman. I bought it at Sears. It's a little thing that's got tons of little splines in it, and you press it over something, and then it shows you what that curve is. So I'll take my two necks that I use, depending upon the gate. I'll look at the first fret, and I'll put it over that one, then I'll put it over my neck to make sure that I'm there. And then, shape around the transition into the headstock and the transition at the neck heel using that. And there's a learning curve to using that tool. It's a tool that will quickly make firewood if you're not paying attention. And it's a way to remove fingernails, and you can rub off to the first knuckle in a hurry with that machine.
Right.
60 grit with a 2 horsepower motor on it.
Right.
So don't pay attention to what you're doing. Don't drink a lot of beer before you're about to shape a neck.
That's solid advice.
Uh-huh.
So how many necks have you fucked up, do you think, over your guitar building career that you've...
That's odd. You asked that because I'm looking at just outside my shop. I have a burn pit that's about 50 feet from where I'm sitting in that direction. And I've probably... Usually the necks aren't messed up on the Deadhead Sander. They're messed up with a dull router bit where it will grab. So if I've already done the hogging away and it grabs, or maple will have a tendency. That's pretty much about all I use for necks. It sometimes will have a tendency to split out. It's not as many as you would think. I mean, over the past 5 years now, I've probably made about 250 guitars, and I'd be willing to bet that maybe a dozen necks have blown out on me.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'll bet you I could fuck up more necks than you. I mean, nobody loves a bragger, but
At the school, during the 6-month electric course, you do, you design and build your own guitar. You also learn, repair for electric and acoustic, and you wind your own pickups and all that kind of stuff. But you also make a practice neck before we make your final neck. And all of the neck stuff isn't done the way that yours truly does it. It's done using straight edges and files and rasps and scrapers and sandpaper and that kind of thing.
Is the measure twice, cut once rule in hard effect at school?
Absolutely, because you can always take more away.
That's a fact. Yeah,
we can't really, even you can, but it's tricky. And I have, you learn to become very imaginative in your, repair. Oh my, how can I fix this for this guy?
How long is that course?
The electric course is 6 months, and the acoustic course is 3.
6 months.
The electric course is busted up into 2 quarters. It's 45 all told. It's a 9-month course for electric and acoustic. It's 45 credit hours. It's an accredited course, so I'm technically a college professor. The first 3 months are devoted to design and repair. So I'll teach you about all of the math that's involved in the design of an electric guitar. Be it, and you can do. We have a few parameters that we stick in, but I teach how to do bolt-on. We always make a bolt-on, but I teach how to do a bolt-on, a set neck with a neck angle, angled headstock, even multi-scale we talk about. But then in the first week, I have guys pulling frets out and, doing fret jobs, and how to make, nuts and saddles for acoustic guitars or for electric guitars, how to truly set up a guitar properly. And then the second 3-month section is where we make the guitar. Now, by the time you get to the acoustic class, everything that you've learned in the electric class is prerequisite. So you have to know how to do frets and have to, how to lay out a fretboard and how to make a neck. Right. Then you learn how, in that 3 months, you make a Dreadnought acoustic guitar with a guy he's like Gandalf. His name's Marty Lanham. He owns Nashville Guitar Company. He was one of the first guys that George Gruen hired in the early 70s as a repair guy. He is
pretty good.
The stuff that Marty deals with is unobtainium. I mean, right. Like, he restored one of Jimmy Rogers' guitars. Jimmy Rogers is considered like the father of country music from like the 1920s.
Right.
He's done old Ernest Tubb guitars. He'll bring in guitars that are $50,000 and show them to all these students. And hey, here's what I've done to this, and I had to do this. I had to take this apart. I had to take the back off and redo the bracing here. Blah blah blah. So in 3 months, which is tricky for any acoustic guitar builder to make it a guitar using hand tools primarily. You'll do that.
Acoustic guitars are terrifying to me because they are like little fucking pressure cookers. They're like little bombs. If like one brace goes, it just feels like
the
whole thing could explode.
Yeah, it's very thin wood, like thin. 90 thousandths, 85 thousandths on the sides, I think. So that it's a box that's braced in such a way that it's strong enough to be resonant and weak enough to be resonant and strong enough to be able to withstand the 200 to 300 pounds of pressure that's trying to cave it in constantly. Right. The box, oddly enough, isn't the trick. The trick is the neck joint, because we do traditional dovetail neck joining and learning how to really fit that neck. That's a big deal. And again, by the time you get to the acoustic side, you will have already been through the entire finishing process several times, where we will have talked about, using shellac and French polishing all the way up through using modern catalyzed finishes like polyurethane or polyester or even UV cured stuff.
Right.
Guitar typically gets finished in nitrocellulose lacquer because it's easy and it's pretty forgiving.
And you can do it in Tennessee.
Yeah, or you can do it anywhere, even with rattle cans in your garage, even in California. I don't use lacquer here because for several reasons. I don't want my guitar to get beat up. I want my guitar to look a certain way forever.
Right.
So use modern catalyzed finishes. You hear about on the gear page and other forums like that.
I don't.
Nitrocellulose lacquer. No, it's not. What it really means is if it goes on thin, and I learned this from John Sir. If it goes on thin and level, that's what you want. You hear guys say nitrocellulose lacquer allows your guitar to breathe. Well, no, because it's a coating. If I hosed me down in nitrocellulose lacquer, I would die because all of my pores in my skin wouldn't be able to breathe.
Right. Yeah, so, if you covered yourself in saran wrap, you would die.
For real.
It's thin.
Yeah. So, but we teach like modern and traditional methods. So whenever somebody gets out, they're qualified to be able to do repair. I mean, it's a 9-month thing. So they're not going to be a master luthier by the time they get out. They're going to be like smart enough to not hurt themselves, hopefully.
And ready to go learn some hard lessons.
For real. Yeah. Now you have the keys to the front door. You've just got your record deal. Off you go.
Here's the tight wire. Generally speaking, I know that it's probably not a hard number, but like, are these young folks that are coming in to have careers as builders? Are they retirees that are like, I always wanted to build a guitar?
It's exactly that. I have everything between, 18-year-old guys that just got out of high school and other guys that are retired military that are up, in their late 50s.
Yeah.
I had in one class, I had a guy that was a like ex-Army Ranger and an ex-Navy SEAL. I never felt safer in my life.
Yeah. No, I mean, the unless you have a disagreement.
Oh, yeah, those dudes. Yeah, for real, like high level buddies to those dudes.
Yeah. Those guys do a hard job, man. That's yeah. I have a lot of respect for folks who make that decision. It's because
Yeah.
it's not like any other job where it's not like being an underwater welder where like, oh well, yeah, you have to understand that maybe a shark is gonna bite you or something. It's like, no, your whole purpose is to, you're
Not
going
get
to
a
be put in harm's way,
Yeah,
and
for real.
people are going to be firing guns at you. Not
Yeah.
maybe, definitely.
Hipster dudes that will post things like, man, FML Monday sucks. Really? Who shot at you today?
Yeah.
Who tried to blow you up today?
Yeah. Take it. Slow your roll, kid.
Those cats are a different level of human being that a lot of us shouldn't be allowed to associate with because we're not cool enough.
It's, yeah. I have a lot of respect for those guys.
For-
I was in the Marine Corps, but I had an easy job. I didn't have to do any, I never had to worry about getting shot at or anything.
Right. Yeah. Well, in the same class with the SEAL and the Ranger guy was an ex-Marine Corps guy who was probably, I can't even speak that ill about the guy. He's a sweet kid and he's really funny, but man, definitely not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
That is a trademark of the United States Marine Corps, my friend.
I'm not going to go that far. He didn't make it off of Paris Island. I don't think he made it out of training.
Yeah.
Even the Marine Corps was like, nope.
It's funny, the Marine Corps has this whole funny thing where they're like, we're the smallest branch of the armed forces because we're the most selective. It's like, well,
man,
I don't know. I mean, I don't doubt that basic training is more difficult. I mean, when I compare notes with people, it definitely sounds like the Marine Corps' basic training is more difficult than any of the other armed forces. And even like advanced, like everyone goes to the School of Infantry, like combat training. Every Marine is a rifleman, as they say. But
no, dude, every Marine is still terrifying. This kid just
was never a Marine. It doesn't sound like you're not a Marine till you.
Even though he liked to say he was a Marine, he was not a Marine. So no, like any branch of the armed forces, man, it's like you cats are different level. So
I never had to do anything. I never went to Desert Storm. That's when I was in, but that was over pretty quick, so.
Cleared for my 18th birthday.
Yeah. I turned 19 in boot camp, and 2 weeks later, when I was home on boot camp leave, that's when Desert Storm broke out. We declared war, and
January 17th, 1991.
That's right.
I thought I signed up for civil service that day.
You discovered your bone spurs the next day.
Fortunately, it was over quickly, and then
I
had all the recruiters saying, "Where are you going to school? What are you studying? Music. We have musicians in the armed forces. Yeah, and you all guys carry guns and run for like 90 miles with 65-pound packs on your back forever. I'm not doing that."
Yeah, you're like, nah.
Not that guy.
Does your sousaphone have a Floyd Rose? Not interested.
Exactly. I'm not in.
Well, listen, man, it was actually after my bedtime. I wake up at 6 a.m.
Dude, good on you.
I'll
be up.
without an alarm, I just wake up at 6. I got my dogs. They want to get fed and they want to go on a walk. And then that's when I get a lot of my work done. I've had a very productive year. It sounds like you are a person who does not like to sit on his hands.
No, this like sickness was torture in so many different ways.
But you made the best use of your time as possible, which
I tried. Yeah, but out here we have 4 horses, a donkey, 2 pigs, a bunch of chickens, piles of barn cats, 2 dogs, 4 ducks, 2 kids under 5.
right.
I teach full time, so I got a lot on the plate.
Are you back to work at the school?
October 5th is the first day back to class.
And what kind of regulation will be there from the COVID action?
Typical things: checking temperature, masks, social distance. Classroom will be split up 6 feet apart.
Yeah. Is there a limitation? Is there regulating the class size, or were the class size already pretty small?
The 2 classes are usually are always 1 to 5 and then 6 to 10.
Oh,
so the day class. So it's always Monday through Friday. So the day class is 1 to 5. Night class is 6 to 10. I'll probably have about 15 in each. So.
And normally same?
Yeah, about the same. So, which is nice. So our classroom is big enough that it always allows for that anyway, and the students usually spread out. So it aside from the mask and the temperature check, it's really not going to be that much different.
Right. Did you wear a dust mask anyway when you were sanding and doing all that kind of stuff?
Respirator in the paint room.
Right.
So it's truly like 1 click more.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm glad. I guess if you were going to pick a time to get a bad seed, this is probably an all right time, because I imagine the school shut down halfway through that quarter, eh?
Oh, yeah, they finished. I had just given the midterm for the electric class, and they still had the build to do. So I missed that for that class. And then once they were done, the school shut down. And so basically since mid-April, they've been done.
Wow. Well, I'm really happy to know that you're going to be back to work. I hope that you guys have full enrollment, and
me too. I'm sure we will.
You can get back to doing what you love to do and showing people. You like sharing that with folks.
Yeah, it's a cool thing, and because every guy that works there as an instructor has done a lot of different things. One of our instructors, Dave Johnson, for example, Dave worked at Gruen in the repair department for a long time. He worked for Carter. He has scale model guitars. He does a lot of custom builds. Marty, the guy, the wizard I talked about before, who does the acoustic side. We have other guys. Phil Jones, who was one of the first guys at the Gibson Custom Shop. He comes in and does guest lectures on how Fender does. Or not Fender, but how Gibson does relicking and weather checking with a knife.
Right.
Him and Tom Murphy are the 2 cats that do that for Gibson. We have just a really, really deep list of Nashville Luthier guys that have done extraordinary things. So the guys there, they definitely get their money's worth, which is nice.
Is the build school attached to an MI music school that exists there as well?
Not here.
Okay.
I would love it if they would bring, GIT and everything out here. Truthfully, I think it would be better suited in Nashville than it would be in Los Angeles.
Right.
But that's just me. Right now, they haven't done that.
Yeah.
But since this is technically, Guitar Town, it makes more sense to have the guitar making school here.
Sure.
Because Gibson lives here, even though Fender owns the town. Gibson lives here.
It's ironic, isn't it?
Yeah. And there are piles of other smaller companies, like myself, but there's like bigger small companies like Novo, for example. We have several grads that work for Novo.
Right.
So, whenever they're looking for a new hire, Matt, will talk to me. Hey, what about this person? Yeah, that one. Do that.
Right. Yeah, rad.
Yeah.
What about, and I swear, this is how it always goes. I'm like, hey, great talking with you. Gotta go. And then I just punish people with more questions. What about, do you see yourself going out and touring again?
No.
No, you're just over it.
I'm done. I am my level of jade is not even green anymore. It's black. And I don't care. Actually, it's kind of sad, truly, because I don't even listen to music anymore. I don't listen to music anymore, and I don't play. The only time that I ever play the guitar is whenever I'm going to do a demo, and I actually have to practice for about 15 minutes before I can do it. I could never get on a tour bus and leave again after my kids were born.
Right.
I watched too many guys watch first steps and birthday parties and that kind of stuff, either over Skype like this or, just talking to them over the phone or whatever. And man, I wasn't going to do that. And I truly don't like anyone's songs well enough to be away from home, including my. And that's really what it comes down to. I knew that whenever it got to a point, whenever I was looking at the set list going 3 more songs, regardless of whatever gig I was on, that was whenever it was time to go.
Right.
And that's where I got. And no, man, I've done in the last 5 years, I have probably done less than 10 gigs.
Wow.
And I'm totally cool with that. If I never did another one, I'd be fine.
This Couchras video is going to be hot. It's going to be the hottest ticket in town for Nutter fans.
Because for several different reasons. The thought of doing a rehearsal right now just makes my stomach flip. Just like, God, I don't have the energy to put into this.
Right.
But no, playing music, and I would still go out and play. Like, truthfully, I would go out and do like an all 80s metal night right now. For real. I would either playing guitar or singing. Honestly, because I'm lazy, I'd rather go sing. But to play, it would take me a day or two to like work the chops back up, so that I wouldn't embarrass myself. But no, to go out and do like a real pro gig again, that's never happening. Never.
I just had a thought.
Okay.
But I'm not going to talk about it while we're recording.
Fair enough.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to thank you for giving me so much time.
Oh.
And thank you for enduring this bullshit year that you got served up.
Well, that was definitely not something I asked for, but it's just what happened.
And do you want to say goodbye to everyone?
Nah.
No? Nope. Nope. You can say goodbye for me.
Yeah, for the folks that helped me and wondered about me and like, sort of followed along or donated to our GoFundMe or any of that stuff, man, I can't thank you enough. Truly from the bottom of my heart and my very well-being, I will never be able to thank you enough. So I will never be able to express my gratitude for that. But I will try and thank you for that. And if you've made it this far, well, congratulations, you made it farther than most people.
All right, I'm going to turn this thing off. Thank you so much. Hold on. Here's where I turn it off.